Okay, so picture this. You're learning a new language. You dedicate hours and hours to memorizing basic vocabulary. You nail down the grammar, you finally figure out how to conjugate the verbs, and you're thinking, hey, I'm doing pretty well. But then someone pulls you aside and tells you that just because you're talking to someone a little older than you need to completely change every single word you're using. And I don't just mean tacking on a polite suffix or tweaking a verb tense. I mean literally throwing out the entire vocabulary and altering the grammatical structure. Every single word.
But wait, it actually goes way further than that. You find out that you actually have to actively switch between 3 totally distinct versions of this language, all depending on whether you're talking to someone of the same social class, someone older, or someone of higher status. You see, this isn't just about throwing in a please or a sir to be polite. No, this is a language that forces you, every single time you open your mouth, to actively negotiate your social relationship with the person standing right in front of you. You literally cannot speak without expressing exactly where you both stand in the social hierarchy.
Now you might be thinking, this is some small, isolated dialect. But no, this incredibly complex, heavily encoded social map is a real language. It's called Javanese, and it is massive. We are talking about roughly 80 million people speaking it, primarily in Central and East Java. That actually makes it the absolute most widely spoken non-national language in the entire world.
Okay, let's dive into this, because there's a really crucial distinction we need to make right off the bat to understand how this works. Javanese is completely separate from Indonesian. Indonesian is the national language, and it's highly egalitarian. It's what kids learn in schools all across the country, and it's used in government or formal situations. Javanese, on the flip side, is the hierarchical language spoken at home and in daily social life. So a Javanese person basically grows up bilingual, constantly code-switching between the totally equal rules of school and the incredibly intricate social map of their home life.
Section 1, the rule of 3, Noko, Chromo, and Chromo Ingil.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can mechanically break down a super simple sentence, I want to eat rice. Take a look at that first row, ngoko. This is the intimate, casual level you'd use for close friends or younger people. You just say, aku pengen mangan sega. It's direct, it's colloquial. But now look at the middle row, chromo. This is for adults you respect or for formal situations. The sentence transforms entirely into kulo bade nedaseko. The word for I, aku, becomes the humble kulo. Mangen becomes the much more refined neda. And then check out the bottom row, chromo ingil. This is the absolute highest level of formality reserved for high officials or royalty. It becomes dalam badematur, sekol. Dalam is an extremely humble word for I that literally translates to inside. So every single word transforms from direct and intimate to incredibly formal and humble.
When you map out these everyday verbs, you'll see Javanese doesn't just tweak a few grammar rules, it literally replaces entire vocabularies. For the word sleep, you go from turu in Goko to tilam in Chromo, all the way to mriam in Chromo Ingil. Go changes from lunga to tindak to samidalu. What's super fascinating here is that for the higher status levels, the language often borrows heavily from Sanskrit or Arabic, which were introduced through historical Hindu and Islamic influences in Java. So the most basic, intimate words are purely Javanese, while the most respectful words draw on this deep, layered, ancient history.
Section 2. Conversations in context. Real-world scenarios.
All right, let's set the scene. Picture a grandson casually hanging out at home, talking to his grandmother. Because they have that tight, intimate family bond, he uses ngako. He just says, "Ne, ako mo mangan, anaw pora." Notice the short, punchy words here. It's super direct, it's colloquial, and it reflects a deep, comfortable intimacy, totally bypassing the age gap.
But then, contrast that with this scene. A guy at a market talking to a vendor he's never met before. They're adult equals, so the proper register is chromo. He says, "Slama pagi bat, piem bakapun perang sakin, manapati bar." Notice how the vocabulary instantly expands and elongates. The phrasing gets much more careful and respectful. He's deliberately framing his question in a way that acknowledges their equal but totally unfamiliar standing.
Now imagine you're an employee addressing your boss. There's a really clear status difference here, so kamo is absolutely required, often packed with specific, humble vocabulary. Pangkat, manawi bade nuan pangapunten, surat laporan sampun rampum. The literal translation is totally layered with verbal hesitancy, like if I may humbly report. The language itself physically requires the employee to soften their approach and elevate the manager.
And then, in extreme cases, like addressing a sultan or a really high official, you have to break out chromo ingil. Dumateng baginda ingkang sinuhun dalam saming derek ngaturkin sujud. This is a complete linguistic elevation of the official and a total deliberate humbling of the speaker. You're essentially prostrating yourself through grammar. It's wild.
Section 3. The philosophy of refinement.
So the crucial point is that this all comes down to one core concept, Budi Bahasa. It translates roughly to cultured manner or refined behavior. And in Javanese society, Budi Bahasa is literally everything. It encompasses your social grace, your emotional control, your respect for elders, and, most importantly for our explainer today, your exact choice of speech level. Language is the primary vehicle for proving to the world that you possess Budi Bahasa. And that brings us to a fundamental clash in Javanese thought. Halus versus kasar. Halus means refined, elegant, smooth. Kasar means coarse, crude, rough. The absolute highest levels of Javanese, kromo ingil, are the ultimate expression of halus. The lowest, ngoko, is considered highly kasar if you use it in the wrong context. So choosing the wrong speech level isn't just an oopsie, it's not just a simple grammar mistake. It is seen as a major character flaw. It makes you appear dangerously kasar, signaling to everyone that you lack the refinement to read basic social situations.
Driving all of this is this underlying really fascinating emotional concept called sumkan. Think of it as a respectful caution or deference. It's not fear. It's a careful, deliberate respect designed to maintain social smoothness and harmony. Speech levels are really just the linguistic expression of sumkan. By using the exact right words, you prevent friction and you actively maintain the social order.
Section 4. The modern language crisis.
Let's move to Kewenatan and see how this builds, because right now there are massive, flattening forces putting immense pressure on Javanese. Young people are flocking to cities where the national language, Indonesian, is essential just to communicate across cultures. Plus, the entire education system is in Indonesian. The media, the internet, it's all Indonesian. And perhaps most fundamentally, modern democratic ideals heavily favor egalitarianism over strict old-school hierarchy. Because of all these forces crashing together, fluency in those high, complex levels of Javanese is declining incredibly rapidly among the youth.
It's a pretty bittersweet reality, honestly. On one hand, we're witnessing a profound loss of linguistic diversity. We're losing this incredibly sophisticated cultural map that connects millions of people to their heritage and enforces these deep values of harmony and respect. But on the other hand, there are massive, real-world practical gains. Simplified communication, a unified national identity, and the embrace of a language that doesn't legally bind you to a strict social hierarchy every single time you speak.
Think about your own daily interactions for a second. When you talk to your boss, or maybe a complete stranger on the street, does your entire sentence structure shift? For speakers of English and lots of other languages, the answer is mostly no. We might change our tone a bit or throw in a please or thank you, but our fundamental grammar remains strictly neutral. It basically treats everyone exactly the same. Javanese forces you to do the exact opposite. It physically, grammatically mandates social positioning. And this brilliantly illustrates a much larger truth. Language is not just some neutral tool we use to pass information back and forth. Language is a social technology. It embeds values, it dictates relationships, and it creates the very framework for how we interact as humans. So as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with this. Take a really close look at the language you speak every single day. What invisible rules are hiding in your grammar, and how exactly does your language shape your society?